Shall we? Do you remember the freedom fighters, also known as the Contras, who opposed the communist Sandinista government in Nicaragua back in the 1980s?
There's no question that when the U.S. Congress, through the Boland Amendment, cut off federal funding for the Nicaraguan freedom fighters, who I actually believe were fighting a communist government in Nicaragua, Vice President George Bush, under Ronald Reagan, and CIA Director Bill Casey came up with an ingenious way to get essentially off the books money to continue the financing of the Nicaraguans quite illegally. Since they were the police, they were able to interdict drugs in Central America, sometimes in South America, but mostly in Central America, ship those drugs into the United States where they could be sold, and then use that money for either funding or weapons for the Nicaraguan Contras. This, of course, was highly illegal. Initially, they attempted to fly those drugs into the state of Louisiana, landing in grass strips somewhere outside of Shreveport. But ultimately, the Louisiana State Police and the governor of Louisiana, recognizing that their activities were highly illegal, told them that they could not use Louisiana as a base of operations for their drug smuggling operation. They then tried to move their operation to Texas. That didn't last very long either. Ultimately, the Texas Rangers and the governor of Texas objected to the federal government's use of these landing pads, these grass strips in Texas. That's when they moved their drug smuggling operation to Mena, Arkansas. Mena, Arkansas was the perfect place. That's because they had a governor, Governor Bill Clinton, who was willing to take his piece of the action for looking the other way. So Bill Clinton, in an operation supervised by George Bush, but supervised on the ground in Mena by CIA lawyer Bill Barr, essentially oversaw the trafficking of millions of dollars of cocaine into the state of Arkansas, where it would then be distributed across the United States. This is an established fact. There's a very rare book, which is hard to find, called Barry and the Boys, which I commend to you. On the cover is a photograph of the entire top rank of the drug smuggling ring. And there you can see the smiling picture of none other than future Attorney General Bill Barr.
Have you seen American Made with Tom Cruise? In this movie, Cruise plays Barry Seal, a pilot who worked for the CIA and who is said to have smuggled between $3 billion to $5 billion worth of cocaine into the United States. He was brutally murdered in 1986 in Baton Rouge.
Ever seen the movie Kill the Messenger with Jeremy Renner? He played Gary Webb, who wrote Dark Alliance and exposed the fact that the CIA created crack cocaine and sold it to the Crips and the Bloods in order to fund the Nicaraguan Contras.
A few years later, Gary Webb turned up dead with 2 bullets in his head, and they called it suicide.
Let's talk about another strange death surrounding the drug trade, specifically poppy, which is used to make opium and morphine. Do you remember Pat Tillman? You know, the star NFL football player? He was making a 7-figure salary with the Arizona Cardinals. And when 9/11 happened, the day after those terrorist attacks, he announced he was going to enlist in the military. After 9/11, Tillman joined the military and eventually became an Army Ranger, and tragically, in 2004, he was shot and killed in Afghanistan in what was called a friendly fire accident, which was very, very suspicious, to say the least.
Tillman was heavily affected by the 9/11 attacks. Let's just say the official story about the events at 9/11 don't pass the smell test, and there are dozens of anomalies.
But we'll just quickly ask you one question. How many buildings fell in New York City on 9/11? A 2014 study of over 1,000 Americans revealed that 53% believe that only 2 buildings fell. But the correct answer is 3. World Trade Center 1, World Trade Center 2, and World Trade Center 7.
World Trade Center 7 was a 47-story building that was not hit by a plane, yet it collapsed at near free fall speed around 5:20 p.m. on 9/11.
On February 9, 2009 in Beijing, China, the Mandarin Oriental Hotel, a 44-story building, was reportedly set ablaze accidentally by fireworks. The fire burned throughout the night and early morning for approximately 10 hours, with giant flames reaching 30 feet above the roof.
Most of the building was gutted, yet there was no collapse, and photos of the building the next day showed the steel fully intact, although it burned throughout the night.
Then in 2017, the Grenfell Tower in England burned for 60 hours, but it did not collapse. Why? Because open-air fires don't get hot enough to melt steel. It's simple physics, folks. It's what enables a beautiful phenomenon which we all love. It's called cooking on an open fire. But on 9/11, World Trade Center 7 collapsed at free fall speed after just a few isolated fires burned for less than 6 hours.